What's up, my friends? Welcome back. It has been quite some time. Welcome back to Crossing the Line podcast. Thank you for bearing with us as we took a couple weeks off just to regroup and refresh and recharge the batteries. And we're back. We're down a man today. No Mark Vignani, unfortunately, but the three of us are here. It's myself, Tyler Zulli, Mike DeVella, Jack Molesky, and boys. First and foremost, it's good to be back with you. I haven't seen you guys since we did the podcast in Jack's little room right there.
Yeah, I think little all-star break for us. We're all-stars here. So, yeah.
First team All-Stars.
We needed that time apart. And I think Mark may have gotten jealous. That's why he just took Gary and said, we're not going to be on the podcast this week. So he'll be missed. Yeah.
Extended hiatus. Which
he's renegotiating his contract.
It's gone to arbitration and everyone's feeling get hurt in that process.
So who's the arbiter in that situation? You two?
Gary. No, Gary.
Oh, Gary.
Definitely not his boy Ozzy Albies agent, because
the arbiter has found in favor of Crossing the Line podcast. Mark will make less money than he already started with.
Mark needs to appear more, though. We need to renegotiate that because I miss him.
We will check back in with Mark next week, guys. We got a lot to get into, but before we do so, again, thank you for coming back and hanging out with us. If you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button for us. We're having a blast doing these. We hope you're enjoying them as much as we are enjoying making them. So we've got a lot to get into, and MLB trade deadline is just 2 weeks away. The MLB All-Star game to look back on. Football inches closer and closer, and we got to talk about a new fun game that has kind of taken over the sports world. We'll do all of that and more coming up right next on Crossing the Line podcast. Yes, thank you so much for hanging out with us once again. We are going to dive into a lot of baseball today. So if you're not a baseball fan, I apologize in advance. They call it the dog days of summer for a reason. It is slower news cycle when it comes to sports, but that doesn't deter the three of us. It doesn't deter Mark because we're all a bunch of big, seam heads, if you will. But guys, I think we probably look back first before we look ahead. The MLB All-Star game was last week. So obviously a slow week across Major League Baseball with the exception of that. And guys, the numbers reflected for the second consecutive year a really downwardly viewed MLB All-Star game. And I don't know about you guys, but I think the MLB All-Star game has almost lost its allure a little bit for me. I don't know what it is, but I know we didn't really talk about this pre-show, but I was interested in your guys' thoughts. Like, the All-Star game doesn't hit the way that it used to hit. Like, it used to be appointment TV for me. And now I checked in and I checked out and I checked the box score. And really all I'm hoping is the Phillies don't play.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the thing that takes precedent All-Star Week is the Home Run Derby. And I think that was must-watch TV. That definitely, for me, didn't disappoint. But, I mean, the only thing that was notable from this game is that the National League finally broke the 9-year losing streak. And, I mean, for you and me, Tyler, being fans of a National League team, that's exciting. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't end up moving the needle as much as it should. And I do think that those guys just go in to have fun, and as they should. They've earned that opportunity. But would it be more fun to watch if it was more competitive? Absolutely. And I think it may have been in the past.
Yeah, and the Home Run Derby is as much as the downward trajectory of the All-Star game has continued. I feel like the Home Run Derby did the exact opposite when they brought this new format back. Like, I still remember Todd Frazier walking it off in the first Home Run Derby, and I think it was Great American Ballpark in 2015. That was electric, and it's just skyrocketed, like 41 home runs for Julio in the first round. It's absolutely insane. Adley Rutschman just balling out right-handed in the bonus round. Like, some really cool stuff. That's always fun. They do have to figure out the production for the Home Run Derby, though, because like it was impossible to follow on TV at times because they couldn't cut fast enough. And we also have to talk about them maybe putting like netting over the outfield so kids don't die. Because did you see the kid
that poor kid,
man. Shot? Speaking of seam heads, Tyler, he's a seam head for life, whether he likes it or not, because it's embedded on the left side of his face.
Listen, I don't know about you guys. I'm sure you probably have in your baseball career. I've seen some scary moments where the life flashes before your eyes off the bat of an equal, right? You're 15, the hitter's 15. You're 17, you're in high school or you're a kid or whatever it might be. I don't know how you translate a 12-year-old off the bat of Vlad Guerrero Jr. one of the guys who probably has one of the craziest, exit velos in the game right now.
Well, what is the criteria too? How old do you have to be in the outfield
I don't
checking
know.
fly balls?
Also,
First and
how do
foremost,
they get out there?
yeah,
Like,
I've always wanted to do that. Second of all, some of these kids are way too young to be out there, especially with, a lot of the new format. You're moving at such a pace where there's a lot more screamers than there used to be. So it's a little bit more dangerous. Third of all, I would like to propose a brand new format to make it even more interesting, where you throw fucking Zach Hampel out there, and every kid who catches a ball and takes it away from Zach Hampel gets like $500 or some incentive. That would be so much fun.
Oh, I thought the incentive was going to be put Zach Campbell out there and just let him get pelted by Vlad Guerrero.
If it happens,
I think
so
most of baseball would enjoy that.
Remember when Ryan Howard walked it off in Pittsburgh and hit the sign to win someone, what was a free car or $1 million, whatever it was? Put Zach Hampel at 420 in center field, and just let guys.
It'll be like Blue Mountain State where they tie Thad Castle to the goalpost and try to make the kicker hit him. Just like tie Zach Hampel up.
I don't know if you guys
back.
I don't know if you guys have ever tried. I'm sure you have tried to hit the cart at the range, because the minute the cart comes out, it becomes target practice.
Of course.
Wait, you go to the range to get better?
I'm there to pelt the guy in the cart.
Yeah.
The point is, I think. Listen, I'm not adamant here. I'm not calling for violence, if you will, but
we are.
If it happens, it happens. Just for him, just for Zach. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
Let's be very clear. Just for Zach Campbell, because I don't think anybody likes that guy anymore.
But speaking of, if we're gonna like spruce up the All-Star game a little bit, I love the Zach Hampel idea for the home run derby. I also just think of, let's make the All-Star game. Let's scrap the celebrity softball game and just make the All-Star game the softball game.
I think
that would be fun.
I don't hate that. I mean, the scores would be enormous.
Oh, of course. You play a 3-inning game, but pitchers then get to bat.
See, that would be quality. If you could do stuff like that, being able, I obviously understand Shohei Ohtani is doing it already on the regular stage, but if you can get, Corbin Burns in at bat, different stuff like that, that would make it way more fun because it's something that you don't regularly see.
I also would love to take the method from Japan where they have the bunt derby. Have you guys seen that video?
Yeah.
Unreal.
In the Japanese League All-Star game, they have targets on the field and guys like bunt, and it's the most riveting bunts of all time.
Yeah. I think it's a Japanese league, but it could be a Korean baseball league. But I love the video of the bench clearing brawl in baseball where the guy runs to the mound and then grabs his leg and they just hop on one leg in a circle. Have you ever seen that video? I thought when you said stealing the method, I'm like, that should be what they do. Just bench clearing brawls. It's the funniest video ever.
Like there's a dunk contest in basketball, which becomes very subjective, right? The home run derby is not subjective. It's does it go out or does it not? There needs to be something subjective like the dunk contest that we can judge in the All-Star game. Like a sickest pitch. Like get all the best arms and see who throws the filthiest pitch. Like, because you don't have to worry about location, right? You can just throw it right down the middle, or what was perceived to be right down the middle. But like, I want to see who could come up with the wildest gyro ball or something.
A skills competition.
Right, exactly.
Essentially what the Pro Bowl has now done. Sure. Like, I still don't watch it, but at least they tried to get creative with some of those other games before the Pro Bowl itself and like turn it into a little bit more. I don't want to change the home run derby really at all. I think they did a phenomenal job with what it's turned into. The one thing I will say that would be kind of fun though is if in the bonus round they gave the batters like Besser bats, metal bats, just use the bats for 30 seconds in the bonus round. I think that'd be awesome. Like
we just watched a child get pelted at 108. What does metal off the metal bat come off at 140?
But if we put Zach Campbell out there, then we want the Besser bat.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's got to be one of those old school bats, not none of this baby core stuff they got now. Like
Oh, it's got to be a Besser. Yeah.
yeah, I want the $25 bat that you would get at, Kmart.
I want to see like a red EXO or the
Right.
CF3 or something like that. That was just borderline
Stealth.
illegal.
CF4, the gold one.
Oh,
The gold stealth was unreal.
yeah.
The
See,
gold
like
stealth
something
was
that was
pretty good.
borderline illegal and that they outlawed very quickly. Like there were levels of those bats. Like it took a while for BB core to come around, but there were some bats that were the before BB core that were even like borderline for that time. They were so overpowered.
I think by the time we got to the C4, I had transitioned into a wood bat league. I think we definitely had the two. There was a two, right? Or maybe it was
Look it
a
up.
three. One of the two of them. We had one, and it was like a precious, gem, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like finding vibranium in Wakanda or something like that. Like it was special occasions that you brought this one out.
They did have I don't see a CF2.
And
Maybe
it
I
must have
can't be
been
finding
the
it, but
three
they
then.
used to have the Vexum, which was also pretty elite in Little League.
That's nice. Yeah. There were a lot of good ones.
I mean, Easton, DeMarini, you couldn't really go wrong. There were plenty of different options out there.
Let us know in the comments down below. What was your favorite Little League bat? What bat did you use the most? Because there was levels to bats. Like we had bats that were exclusively for travel ball, and like you, under no circumstances were you to bring it out in like the in-house league.
Yeah. 100%. People took those things seriously.
Oh, it was legit. And then there were certain bats that only certain players could use. I don't know if you guys had that, but that was a thing when we were kids too.
Yeah.
Sounds lame. Let the kids use the best bats. Make it fun.
Boys play.
So you would think that kids like me who weren't any good would need the good bats. But I was up there swinging the junk. It's probably why I it's probably why I didn't hit many home runs in my day.
Should have had a CF4.
Call up my parents from 15 years ago. File a complaint.
Gotcha.
They should
into that.
have been charging $500.
Oh my god, they were
though.
insanely expensive.
You had to have a kid on your team that was loaded, that had a C4, that was willing to let you use it. That's 90% of our at least I can say for myself, that was my experience. Thank God for that kid who had the C4.
You had two choices. You had the rich family or the kid that looked like they were going to go play some decent level ball. Right? Like cuz if they looked like they were going to play collegiately or something like that, like they had the good stuff.
Or the rich family who was getting their kid a new bat for the next season, and they had a C4 that was used that they were willing to depart, or they were willing to get rid of for a measly price compared to what you would get it at Dick's Sporting Goods for.
That's a good point.
And that kid's selling crack now. What? And on that note, all right. All right, so the MLB All-Stars game is behind us, but the trade deadline is, in fact, ahead of us. We have about 2 weeks till the trade deadline, 13 days, I believe, to be precise. And before we get into kind of what you are looking for your team to do, we have, two teams represented here. Obviously, the big name, Shohei Ohtani. I'm just going to ask you guys point blank, and you can change your answer in the next 13 days. First and foremost, does Shohei Ohtani get traded? And second, what is the viable landing spot for Shohei Ohtani?
No.
So, true. I think a deal for him is too complicated to get done. I think the Angels actually would be kind of stupid not to trade him, which sounds ludicrous, but I just don't see him coming back to Anaheim. And the haul you could get for Ohtani it'd be the biggest haul in baseball history. I would have to think. But then to your second question, that also makes me think like that really limits the landing spots for Ohtani, because unless I'm convinced that my team is one of a couple teams that could win it all this year. I'm not going all in for a guy that is going to have every team that's not the Pirates, Rockies, Orioles, these Rays small market teams bidding for him this offseason. Like, it's not one of those where you get him on your team and you've got like, 50% chance he's going to come back in the offseason. Like, it's truly a rental, and it's the highest price rental you could possibly get. So if I'm not like one of 3 or 4 teams, I'm probably not even entertaining the idea because it's too much to give up for uncertainty.
Which is kind of funny, Jack, because one of those probably 5 or less teams that have a legitimate chance to win the World Series is a team that you mentioned is the Tampa Bay Rays. Would a team like that consider it as it, because they're not going to resign him, right? They've the highest free agent acquisition they've ever made in franchise history is Zach Eflin. It puts it into perspective, right? So like it puts it into perspective as to how much money the team's willing to spend. They're not going to retain his services for more than this half season. But if you're knocking on the doorstep of a World Series championship, would a team like that is loaded with a plethora of young talent and young prospects make a half season move? It's another thing to think about. I think the answer is probably no, but I wouldn't entirely exclude them.
It's curious, and I think it's probably no, because that's why the Rays are good, is because they're capitalizing on this young talent before that young talent gets paid. So if you significantly deplete said young talent, which you're probably going to have to do in this Ohtani trade, then suddenly if you get Ohtani, great, but like you have to think for in the moment, you have to think for now. But also the Rays, I don't know if they think that way because of the way they operate, and like I feel like they're constantly one move ahead. But that also means they're like thinking about, all right, in 2 years, we might have to pay this guy. Who's the next guy that we have who 2 years down the line will basically be his equal at a couple $100 million less or whatever it is. So yeah, they're an interesting case, but I don't think they have it. And if I'm the Angels and I see Ohtani and the Rays talking, I'm like, all right, give me Wander Franco or give me Glass now. And I don't think the Rays trade either of them. But those are the only 2 players that I think are worthwhile getting if you're the Angels to give up Ohtani.
Right. I think that's difficult as well. Ultimately, what they need to really consider is the return. And obviously, that is the only thing that Artie Moreno is concerned about right now. If I trade Shohei Ohtani, if I become that guy, I am going to be the guy in history that traded Shohei Ohtani. So what am I getting in return? To me, you have to look at, because when we look at some of the teams that have been named, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Mets, to me, I feel like none of these teams that are in the eyes of the baseball writers the most likely to trade for him are going to be the ones to trade for him. I think it's going to be somebody out of left field. For instance, hear me out. What if, and I understand that this year may be a wash for them, what if we were to see the San Diego Padres say, hey, Juan Soto is kind of having a resurgence, but it's really not working out for us. Is this our opportunity to try to bring in Ohtani and sign him long term? We are committed to giving out big time deals. Is this something that makes sense for us long term? Look at somebody on a different scale in Baltimore. They're already starting their asking price for Ohtani at 2 top prospects. Understandably, you may not want to be the ones to trade Jackson Holiday, but at the same rate for Shohei Ohtani, if you have the number 1 prospect in baseball and you can dangle a carrot out there and say, hey, we can go to Ohtani to be the leader in the clubhouse with a young core that has Rutschman and all these guys that are starting to produce and already have the opportunity this year alone to go and make a run at the World Series. I think that it's going to be interesting to see some of the players that, if there really is that possibility, which again, to answer your first question, I don't think he's getting traded. I don't think there's a shot. But if there is, and we see it over the next week, I think it's going to be one of these types of teams, like one of the 2 that I mentioned, or maybe even Arizona or something like that, that's out of left field that you don't even think of. Because to me, no chance are they trading them to the Dodgers. There's just no shot. Yankees, I don't know that they have enough to get it done. Mets, same thing. They're a dumpster fire right now. They have plenty of stuff they could probably do, but I just don't see it making sense at the moment. So it does need to be somebody that we're not thinking of. And if it does happen, I think it's going to be a wild trade that's going to be historic. He's a historic player.
One of the things that I find very interesting, because it's an immediate thought that people go to, and it's not the wrong thought. It's just, I think it's the wrong thought process, is you don't trade within your division, right? Like, that's in all sports. I think the NFL is probably the biggest one. You don't trade in your division because of the rivalries, but that's always pressing throughout a lot of sports. I disagree. If you trade within your division and you feel like you've won the trade, then by all means go ahead and make a move. Two of the teams that I think that are very much hot on the Shohei Ohtani trail are the Seattle Mariners and the Texas Rangers. Not necessarily in the trade market, but I think in free agency, Seattle would make a ton of sense because of the fact that he would stay in the Pacific, be in the Pacific Northwest. It would be the closest he could possibly be to home. You don't want to make this assumption, but it probably has to be made. There is the Ichiro connection in Seattle. I mean, I would think it has some sort of merit. I don't know if it's the differentiator, but it can't be a negative. And the fact that Seattle has a young core that if they're willing to wait this thing out, I think they're willing to spend the money on. And the Texas Rangers have proven to you that they're just, I don't know if they've got oil money. I don't know if they've got what kind of money they got going on, but the Texas Rangers have proven to you.
It's oil money and royalties from Friday Night Lights.
Whatever it is, they're making money hand over fist, and they've shown they're willing to spend money. They've spent big time free agency the last couple of seasons. Obviously, DeGrom has been injured, but they've spent a lot of money on a lot of guys. Why not one more player? So I think that a lot of teams, as Mike kind of alluded to, are in this waited out approach. And if Shohei Ohtani does get traded, it's going to be for a lesser package than he deservedly should be moved for.
Right.
I was just gonna say that, and this is Bucks every conventional piece of wisdom that owners usually operate with, but there is no way the Angels win a Shohei Ohtani trade, because like you said, first of all, just look at the Juan Soto package from a couple years back. Mackenzie Gore is the only name in that package that we still even really talk about right now. Granted, those guys can still have time to develop, but for Juan Soto, who's considered one of the generational talents, it was nothing in terms of, it was pennies.
And by the way, the one guy that I thought was going to be the standout of that trade, I mean, he's still 22 years old, but CJ Abrams hasn't impressed me all that much.
No,
I mean, he's fast, he's flashy with the glove, but if he can't put it together at the plate, it's not gonna come into fruition past him being a utility guy.
Yeah. So you go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say Gore's ERA is sub 4.5 right now. So really a difficult look if you're the Nationals in that trade.
It's always hard to trade a superstar when you're trading a superstar for prospects, especially in baseball.
And it's even harder when that superstar, again, is a free agent and is going to get the most lucrative contract in major sports history. Mm-hmm. So the Angels aren't going to win a trade. And then when you also look at it as, okay, if he's on the trade block, that means the Angels know he's not going to re-sign with them. Then you lose the trade even more, because teams are like, well, he's walking at the end of the season. So you either lose him for nothing at the end of the year or you get something out of it. So again, this bucks conventional wisdom, but the one thing the Angels haven't done with Ohtani and Trout is win. The best way to convince Shohei Ohtani to stay with your team that hasn't won is win. Why not, even though you're one game under 500, why not go the other way and say, fuck it? Why don't the Angels make a bunch of moves at the deadline, build a team around Ohtani and Trout, and try to get hot with the two best players in baseball and say, let's make a run in an AL that isn't great this year. And then even if you don't win a World Series, maybe you win a round or two, and maybe that's enough to convince Shohei to stay with your team, to show that hey, we made the playoffs and we're committed to building around you and trying to make a World Series team, because you're not going to be a winning team if you lose Ohtani after this season. So I would do anything and everything to try to keep him and court him, if you will.
They're a game under 500, but they're actually only 5 games back of the final wild card spot, which is astounding considering the fact that the AL East is insane. And even teams that I thought, like I said, I thought Boston was going to be awful. They're 5 games over 500. The Yankees have struggled, and they're 4 games over 500 or whatever it may come out to be. It's not a thought process I've given a lot of time to, Jack, but it's not a bad one either. I just am curious as to think about what they have to offer.
Right.
Right. And that's the issue. But I just like your organization is people already laugh at the Angels because you have two of the best players in baseball and you are under 500. But if they lose Ohtani, like you said, who do they have to offer? Like, so that means who do they have that's going to pick up the slack when Ohtani's gone? He's truly a one-man show at times. So the team's only going to get worse if Ohtani leaves. I just don't know. You look like losers if you trade him. You look like losers if you don't trade him and he walks. Might as well try to swing for the fences and go out winners.
This, to me, I mean, listen, I was getting obliterated on Twitter this time last year. And I was getting obliterated on the airwaves when I did this topic as a side this time last year. And people thought I was crazy. The Angels' window of opportunity to trade Shohei Ohtani was last July, because then you have a year and a half's worth of control contract wise, and you have the ability to, woo maybe the greatest player to ever walk the planet into signing the greatest contract to ever exist. And doing that over the course of a playoff run, potentially for a team that may make a deep run, an entire offseason and an entire regular season with a second playoff run pending, and likely opportunity to make back-to-back playoffs. They missed their window of opportunity by not moving him last year. And they brought in very little help. The pitching staff started off strong. Patrick Sandoval had a good start to the year. Andrew Haney had a good start to the year. But at this point, they've fallen off the grid because they're an average baseball team with two of the greatest players to ever play the game.
And that's what they've been.
Those two things should never equate.
And I mean, I can't remember when we even gave them a chance. Like, even with these guys that they've had, I mean, Trout's been on the team for almost a decade now. I mean, we haven't seen one season where we've even given them a chance to make the playoffs. And that's because the pitching has been awful. You bring in Shohei Ohtani, massive win for the franchise. He's been an unbelievable generational Hall of Fame player. And you've got two of those guys now, and you can't build around them for anything. You're going to tell me that plugging in a Matt Moore and thinking that you're going to go to the World Series is going to do something for you? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me what their game plan has been from day one. They've squandered a ton of prospects over the years. They never made the big trades at the deadline. Now you're telling me, oh, they're going to go and again, just to kind of recap, I don't think there's any chance that Artie Moreno goes all in, because he's never been that guy. And if he was, then maybe we would have seen Mike Trout in the playoffs. Maybe we would have seen Shohei Ohtani in the playoffs. And now we get the taste of it in the World Baseball Classic. And I guarantee you Mike Trout's sitting back to himself saying, well, I took the contract, but I'm not playing in any high stakes games. Maybe it was a mistake. And, are we going to get to see any high leverage Mike Trout at any point in his career? Maybe when he's in his 40s.
I mean,
it sucks.
Think about the moves you talk about. They've never gone all in. And the inverse is one of the, what looks to be one of the best moves to acquire prospects over the last, at least half a decade for the Angels is the move, the two separate moves that helped them acquire Logan O'Hoppe and Mickey Moniak, last year. And the Phillies are not going to take those trades back because they got somebody who made it, pitched innings in the World Series, and they got somebody who looks to be a staple, at least left fielder, potentially center fielder, depending on what they do with Pache over the next, decade, in Brandon Marsh. They got two guys that O'Hoppe looks like he can play. I know he's banged up right now, and Moniak looks like he's kind of finally back from that injury that derailed him a season ago. But the point is, even when they've made inverse moves to get better in their young talent department, they've struck out.
Great point. And I'm going to throw it back on you, Tyler, just because I don't think this is going to happen, but it's worth a conversation, especially with you and I both being Phillies fans and a lot of people that listen to this being Phillies fans. What are the odds that Dave Dombrowski just throws something out there.
Oh,
This is
he's
the
gonna.
best. I mean, this is the best we've seen their farm system in probably 15 years, in my opinion, since they had the Utley, Rollins, Hamels crop, Ryan
Sure.
Howard. I mean, now they have Painter, he's a top 10 prospect. They've got Abel, who's top 50. They've got Crawford, who's top 100. They're looking to start the bidding at 2 top prospects. Then you've got some guys like Alec Boehm or something that if they wanted 1 or 2 major league guys, exactly like you mentioned, Dave Dombrowski's going to give those guys up. He's going to give up a Mickey Moniak. He's going to give up a Logan O'Hoppe. He traded Ben Brown to get a half a season of David Robertson. He traded Nick Pivetta to get absolutely nothing the year before. I mean, it's ultimately something where, or I guess that may
dare
not
talk
have been,
crap on Heath Hembry and Brandon Workman.
but dear God, was that even Dave Dombrowski? Was that
No, I think it
Clentak?
was. I think it was
Yeah.
prior. Yeah, but you're
Either
right.
way.
I mean,
Either way,
and I think
he's the guy who's going to give up the big names. If
I
you
think
want a
that-
return that is a sizable return for a year and a half of Shohei Ohtani, then this is it.
Sure.
In my opinion, he's going to give up the most.
I mean, all of these GMs of large market teams that are in contention are going to call. I think the Yankees, Cashman's going to call. And Jack, you can correct me if I'm like way off the grid, but I think Cashman's going to call, right? Because why wouldn't he? He's going to.
Why wouldn't you? But yeah, I mean, it's just I can't even talk about the Yankees without laughing.
They're going to listen. The Angels are going to say we want Volpe plus, and the Yankees are going to go absolutely freaking not, right? Just like the Angels are going to go, we want Painter and plus, and the Phillies are going to go nah, and then they're going to negotiate. And I don't think either of these two teams walk away with a Shohei Ohtani. I don't, but are all of the big market GMs going to call? Of course they're going to call.
You have to do your due diligence. I think just to wrap up on the Angels before we start getting into our teams, the other thing I was just thinking back on, like, yeah, they haven't technically, swung for the fences like Mike, you were saying. They haven't gone all in per se.
Good analogy or good.
Yeah, but I also will say, like, they've tried, they've just missed. Like, you look at Albert Pujols. He was 32 when they grabbed him. Like, that was just a miss. He was too old. Like, they got 2 years of way past his prime. Josh Hamilton, Tony Rendon for a couple of years. Like, he's just been awful. Like, they've tried to get guys that at one time were really good. They've just paid these guys when their window was already closed. Was it Garrett Richards for a couple of years, but then he just had injury issues. Like, it's not like they haven't tried. They just have done that thing where they were paying the guys that they used to be to try to fill this team around Mike Trout and now Shohei Ohtani. They just tried in the wrong way by throwing money at has-beens. And again, these are all-time players, but has-beens in the sense of, like, they're not Hall of Famers playing at that level when they were actually signed by the Angels.
One of my all-time, what you just brought up, Jack, one of my all-time favorite scenes in a great sports movie comes from Moneyball. And it's a very intimate moment between Billy Beane and David Justice. And David Justice is in the cage and he thinks he's too good for the whole, like Moneyball aspect approach. And Billy Beane says, "Not paying you to be the player you were. I'm paying you to be the player you are right now." And I know it's not the same because those guys were swinging for the fences, whereas Billy Beane was, getting the last bit of 38-year-old David Justice that he could possibly get. But I think it has some commonality where you're right. They've spent the money. It's just every time they do go out and make an attempt, an approach shot, they're duffing their shot.
Guys, I want to, just to make sure before we dive into our teams, I have one more hypothetical for you both. I saw this thrown out by Buster Olney, and I know that we don't think it's going to happen, but assuming there's a chance Shohei Ohtani gets traded to the National League, is there a chance? Is there any chance that he could possibly be in contention and potentially win the MVP in both leagues?
I didn't think it was possible. I mean, I don't mean from like a can
right
you do
from
it standpoint.
the
like, are you feasibly allowed to do that? I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, and I think the answer is no because of what Ronald Acuna is doing in the National. Like, Ronald Acuna is having a historic season. He might hit 40 home runs and steal 80 bases, which is just dumb.
Insane.
But Yeah, if he was traded to the American League, like if he was in the National League and doing what he's doing now and then traded to the American League, then it's possible because no one in the American League is really running away with an MVP race.
I will say this: if he gets traded to the National League, I would still, barring like an Aaron Judge type ascension in the second half of the season, even if he doesn't pitch or hit another game in the American League, I'm still giving him my vote.
Sure, 100%. We talked about it a couple shows ago last time we recorded that he's already locked it up before the All-Star break, which is crazy, but it's true. But then just go into the Yankees and again, like Brian Cashman, I don't even want to talk about him. Aaron Boone's a shitty manager, but boy, I feel bad for him because like he can't help the team that was given to him, which was a bad team. And he's such a player's manager that like he looks like an idiot in these press conferences when he's like, I still believe in my team, but he's never going to throw his guys under the bus. That's not the type of manager that he is. So I feel bad for him. I don't think he's a good manager. I think he should be fired. I feel bad for him. I think the Yankees should sell at the deadline. I think anyone not named Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge, Anthony Volpe, Oswald Cabrera, like some of these young guys you're going to build around, sell. Like you're not going to win this year. I don't care if you go out and get Cody Bellinger, Randall Grichuk, they're rumored. You would have to go out and get Shohei Ohtani plus two other players that are really, really good to probably truly contend. That's how far away they are. So I would sell it. I would just go Cole, Carlos Rodon in your rotation. Ship Severino. I don't think he's got it anymore. Like really build around Cole, Judge, Rodon, Volpe, and sell.
If Cashman can get somebody to take Donaldson, can he? Is he going to do one of those Moneyball moves where he stocks the vending machines for a couple seasons too?
God, I just like I can't believe Josh Donaldson. It takes an injury to get him out of the lineup, and the dude bats like 143, and then the guy that was replacing Donaldson, Oswald Peraza, comes up and in one game gets on base 5 times. He had 1 hit, he walked 4 times, he scored 2 runs, he had an RBI.
That's a great day in my book.
That's the guy that you were leaving in the minors for Josh fucking Donaldson, who, if he hadn't hit it, if this is my favorite stat, because F Josh Donaldson. If you take away Josh Donaldson's home runs this season, Oswald Peraza got on base last night more times than Josh Donaldson has gotten on base this entire season.
Wow.
Sorry, what?
I'm pretty confident.
Let's find out.
How many home runs does this idiot have? He's
10.
got to have double digits, right?
He has 10.
He has 10 or 11.
He has
Josh
15 total hits.
What's his OBP like?
He has 15 total hits. 10 of them are.
So
did Oswald get on base 6 times last night?
He got on base 5 times, so it was tied.
So he tied.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't including walks. I said that wrong, but it was Oswald got on base as many times as Donaldson has hits other than this season.
So, Jack, I think the one name, assuming I don't know what the contract looks like, you can tell me how many years he has left. It's probably a ton. But the one name that would be a movable piece for me is Giancarlo Stanton, right? Guy's got some pop still. Some team is going to take a swing and go, he's Stanton, right? If he connects, he's still putting the ball 7,000 feet in the air.
I mean, he's batting 201, 11 home runs.
The numbers are bad.
But...
Oh, don't get me wrong. The numbers are bad, and the contract might be worse.
Well, the contract is bad.
But
what is it, 29 a year still?
The contract is 32 for the next 3 years.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 2 more years.
And
I don't think anyone's gonna take that.
No. Hold on. It's 32 for the next 3 years. Then it's 29 in 2026. Then it's 25 in 2027. Then the club option kicks in 2028, and that's $25 million. And then at age 39 in the year 2029, when I hope to be dead if the Yankees continue to play, Giancarlo Stanton will become a free agent.
You think I think something tells me, Jack, they might decline that player option or team option.
Jeez. I mean, this it's so bad that because the thing is right now, Hal's not really willing to spend, it seems like. So I would just trade, I'd trade Donaldson for nothing. I'd trade Stanton for nothing. They're not winning in the lineup right now. And this thought that these guys that, again, like we talk about the Angels, players that are past their prime very rarely have this renaissance in their mid 30s and suddenly come back. Like when they're done, and you just have to accept it. So like get rid of the dead weight and start over.
Hey, Jack, while we're on the subject,
don't do it. He's already pissed off.
You're in a room. You have a gun. It's a BB gun, everyone. We're not violent.
Unless
you have two bullets in your gun. Zach Edey,
Toby twice.
Zach Edey, Josh Donaldson, and Giancarlo Stanton are in the room. Who are you shooting?
I would probably go one apiece for
the fact that he's had to give pause is incredible.
Well, I was just thinking if Donaldson gets 2 to the dome or Edey gets 1 as well. I think Edey and Donaldson. The thing with Stanton is Stanton sucks, but like he is one of the few Yankees that's taken accountability for sucking in the last couple of years. Like every time they ask him, like, "Hey, you're not hitting well," he's like, "Yeah, I know. I need to be better." They were like, "Hey, you're injured again." He's like, "Yeah, I know. It sucks. I want to be on the field. Like it's unacceptable. I have to get healthy." Like I don't hate the guy. He just hasn't produced the way a $32 million player should.
Fair. And that right there is the conversation that I'm tired of having, but I've tried to have with Sixers fans about Tobias Harris. Like Tobias Harris, I don't blame Tobias Harris for putting pen to paper. I don't blame Giancarlo Stanton for putting pen to paper. If you put $32 million in front of me, I'm going to sign the contract. I probably won't even ask what job I'm doing. You could put me in Siberia, ice fishing. If it's worth $32 million, I'll do it. There has to be a disconnect between I don't blame you for signing the contract versus productivity versus the contract. Like the minute you sign pen to paper, your expectation level raises, but it should not also correlate to raising. Should this player take less money, right? Like no one's ever going to take less money.
Especially in baseball when there is no
guaranteed.
There's no salary cap. It's guaranteed. Right. Yeah.
Mike, I want to ask you, knowing that the Phillies are in contention and they probably are going to be buyers at the deadline, what are your thoughts on their deadline acquisitions? Because I have one name in mind that I would break barriers for. I would run through a wall.
It's Domingo Germán, your new favorite fantasy baseball player.
He is. Hey, he's still on my team. He's still on my roster.
Sorry, I got distracted. You guys see this Atlanta-Arizona game right now? Austin Riley just hit a home run to make it 13-12 Braves in the 6th inning. Wild. Anyway.
That's not great for my fantasy team. Wasn't Gallen on the mound tonight?
I don't know. Let me look.
I think the Braves should go and get Ohtani. F it.
The Braves don't need anybody else.
Doesn't matter.
Don't encourage them.
Davies was on the mound, so it's not Gallen. You're good.
Yeah, Davies was on the mound, just not for long.
Davies. Every time I hear Davies, I think of Entourage.
On the mound tonight.
Yeah. Adam Davies. All right. I think are you referring to Juan Soto?
No.
Wow.
I mean, listen, if they're able to make a move for Juan Soto, I'd be thrilled. I'm looking more reasonable expectations that I'd be really excited about.
Are you thinking of a St. Louis Cardinal?
No, also not there either.
Are you thinking of a Cy Young pick of yours that was very consistent over the
years? Listen, I would love
pitcher or position player.
Yeah, but let me think. Oh, pitcher.
Listen, like
National or American League?
American League. The name doesn't jump off the page to you, right? It's not a perennial all-star. It's not a Cy Young winner, but it is somebody that I've taken a lot of interest in watching this team a lot because of Tristan McKenzie. I have.
Do you think that Bieber?
No, I think Aaron Savali is the move. Young guy who I think is under team control for another 2 seasons. 2.65 ERA this year in his 10 starts that he's made.
I would love that.
He's not pitching deep into games. He only has 58 innings pitched, but like nobody's pitching deep into games anymore. But the number that excites me is the team control and the age, of course, right? Because I think Christopher Sanchez has done a nice job as the 5, but I would have a definitive number 5, and I would trust all 5 of the guys in their rotation, and maybe even Aaron Nola, well, all 4 of them and Aaron Nola, to pitch in the playoffs. And if you acquire a Savali, like, it's going to cost you, there's no doubt, but I could have Savali now, or I could have McGarry maybe.
Right. I mean,
And
that's a
that's
no-brainer
a
to me.
no-brainer to me.
And again, like I mentioned earlier, Dombrowski makes that move 10 out of 10 times. It's whether or not they bite on it.
Sure.
I like that though. I didn't even think of him, honestly. To be completely transparent, I think they're going to make several moves. I'm so all over the place. I'm still kind of in that I'm holding out hope for a big move, a big fish, because I do feel like they have the talent available already. The bullpen has looked great. I still feel like they're probably going to make a bullpen move. One guy I would say is
All teams,
intriguing.
all,
Well, yeah, of course.
all playoff teams make bullpen moves.
Of
You
course.
just do it.
I'll give you a name, and it's very familiar to Phillies fans, just not in the way they think. Kenyon Middleton, guy from the White Sox, having a sneaky good year. I just feel like though that's one of those kind of moves that they could make. Another guy.
Was he in a trade at some point?
I don't remember.
What if they, because another pitcher that I know Zuli for a little bit, at least, you had an affection for, but like, okay, if you're getting Kenyon Middleton for the White Sox,
Giolito,
throw him in a package. He's a rental. There's no control there, but he's having a really solid season. And he's a guy that eats up innings too.
I think he'd be great. I honestly feel like, to me, the move I think they're going to make is actually a weird one, because this is a team that they're in contention for a wild card spot with, but it's a team that they just beat the crap out of at home. It's the Padres. And I think Blake Snell, regardless of him almost derailing the season, hitting Bryce Harper in the hand, I think that that's the guy they're probably going to look at. I don't know if that's true. I just have a feeling that's the kind of guy that they'd be looking for. I think that they need, they're not to say they need to prioritize a lefty, but I feel like they're gonna.
Well, and his strikeout rates are off the charts this year.
Correct. Yeah.
Like, so that's literally the only knock I have on Ranger Suarez. You know how big of a Ranger Suarez fan I am. I love Ranger Suarez, but he'll strike guys out, but he's not a punch out pitcher, right? He's a control guy. He knows where to put it. He knows how to pitch, and he gets guys off balance, a lot of pop-ups, a lot of ground outs. He fields his position well. If you can get a left-handed starter that has punch out ability, especially considering the fact that even though Wheeler and Nola's numbers have trended down, Nola's strikeout numbers are right on par with where they've been all his career. You can have somebody to be able to do it from the left side. I'd love to acquire a Snell. I'm just not so sure the Padres part with him.
Well, I think we talked about this maybe on the last podcast, but I saw something where if you take away Nola's home runs, even with, I think, his home runs, everything, all things considered, his on base percentage against was lower than Ohtani, McClanahan, Cole, and I think Valdez, all pitchers that are in contention for the Cy Young. So the real knock on Nola is the fact that the guy can't stop giving up home runs to save his life. Now, thank God that he got the win tonight, but at the end of the day, he needs to be better if they're going to make a run regardless. If they do bring somebody in, though, like you said, no matter who it is, Savali, Snell, I mean, it really needs to be something that they prioritize, in my opinion, if they're going to make a run. So it's going to be that, and it's going to be probably an outfield piece. I think they could still end up going first baseman, but I think that Bryce is probably going to end up playing the position. A name that I hear constantly is Adam Duvall. I think somebody of that kind of echelon is going to be the move, but I have no idea. This is really one of those years that it could be so many different guys. I really don't have a specific one person that I'm pinpointing. If you asked me if there's two guys that I would absolutely be over the moon for, and for good reason, because they're big names, it's not like I'm just pulling a fish out of the sea, but obviously Juan Soto would be unreal. But I think Marcus Stroman is really my guy this year. If they were to get Marcus Stroman, I really do think that legitimate chance that they have an opportunity to take down the Braves one more time and make another World Series run.
I think the inexpensive, like because I don't think the Phillies need to make a big splash in the outfield unless it's Juan Soto, obviously. But if you look at like inexpensive outfield help, because they're looking to upgrade on defense, right? They've got bats in the outfield. That's not a problem.
Anything to get Kyle Schwarber out of the field.
Correct.
I will take Jack. You're probably better.
Although, did you see the catch that he made tonight? It was pretty awesome.
What's that? Blind squirrel finds a nut once in a
That's
while.
true.
Yeah, exactly. I would look at like he's going to cost nothing because he's a free agent at the end of the year and he's not a huge name, but like Randall Grichuk is having a really good season. And if he's your defensive help in the outfield, also batting, I think 300 right now, and just hits for average. Like, I think that's a really good, inexpensive upgrade that you can make in the outfield. Cause like, he's not the guy, he's not replacing anyone per se, but he's awesome to bring into a game in a 6th, 7th inning. Or again, if you DH and Schwarber, throw him in left field. Obviously, I think he's a good one to look at. But
I think the one issue that this team is going to have, and it's not a bad issue to have if everything works out well, but I think this team and this fan base, assuming he comes back healthy from getting these, rods taken out of his hand, this team and this fan base have fallen in love with Christian Pache, which is great because, it's a former top prospect. I mean, everybody knew what he could do with the glove, right? He's a wizard with the glove. And if he could hit 220, he'd be a serviceable player. Now he's had a much better offensive season. How much do they look at that and go, all right, that's our guy. We don't have to worry about this because it's Marsh and Pache, and you take your chances with, Castellanos, who's been better defensively in right field. I don't know if they make an outfield move because of the fact that they really have fallen in love with Pache.
Yeah. So on that note, though, do they end up looking at possible first or third baseman instead? Because
I think first baseman, assuming that it's for 1 year.
What does it take to get Paul Goldschmidt?
More than I'm willing to pay. And don't take that as I don't want Paul Goldschmidt.
No, without a doubt, everybody would.
You guys know me. I'm like blanket, get rid of prospects and give me, studs. But I think that in this case, the asking price is going to be too high.
Okay, so somebody who can do it all, and again,
Jordan Walker, I'll take him.
I like him. I mean, this is another one that's just a bigger name than, and it may be too much of the price versus what they're worth, but to me, this screams Cody Bellinger as well.
I think Bellinger makes a ton of sense. I think a lot of people are deterred because of the struggle he's had in the last couple of years in LA. He's had a much better year in Chicago this year. And I think the one thing that people forget with Bellinger, he's a really plus defender.
Yeah, he's great. I think it'd be a no-brainer. I just don't know what the price would be.
Right. I mean, half a season, it was a 1-year deal in Chicago. I think a lot of teams are going to be calling the Cubs for Cody Bellinger.
Right.
But we've got 2 weeks to continue to talk about this. We'll check back in next week. Next 2 weeks from now will be the 31st, and the 1st we'll have time to react and have all of that conversation in place. But guys, one more thing I want to get to, and we'll wrap this thing up. This game has been amazing. Have you guys played this Immaculate Grid?
I'm doing it as we speak. I need one more, boys.
This thing has taken over my life, guys. My alarm goes off in the morning, right? Rocky music plays every single morning at 6:30.
Which
song? I'm that the song. I'm that cheesy Philadelphian, right? And I roll over, I say hello to my wife, I say hello to my dog, and immediately, with like one eye open, ImmaculateGrid.com.
That's how I start most of my mornings too. I do the New York Times mini crossword before I go to bed, because that refreshes at like 10 p.m., which is weird. And then I wake up and I go Immaculate Grid and then Puck Doku, which is the same thing, but for hockey.
I have struggled with Puck Doku so much, and I realized I don't know nearly as much hockey as I thought I did.
I love Puck Doku.
But these games are insane. There's the crossover grid that gives you an NFL and basketball one. And now especially with Immaculate Grid, I don't know if Puck Doku has, but Immaculate Grid has paired with Baseball Reference. And it's, I mean, like I scour Baseball Reference for fun. Like, that's how big of a baseball nerd I am. Like, I have found myself looking at Aaron Savali's stats and, these guys that I want the Phillies to acquire. This is a perfect pairing. I mean, this is amazing. And guys, I got to tell you, I think I know a lot of baseball. I think this group knows a lot of baseball. When I tell you I play this game and me and my dad send it to each other back and forth every day, this man with like 50 plus years of baseball fandom pulls names out of nowhere that I swear to God he makes up. He'll be like, "Oh yeah, this guy was traded for this guy in 1972, and then he didn't pitch in another game." And I'm like, "You made him up. It's not a real person. He's insane."
I'm convinced that most of the baseball players before like 1910 were made up.
The names were made up for sure.
I don't think those, as that woman on the plane said, those motherfuckers aren't real.
The story of the guy that pitched a complete game after getting struck by lightning is one of my all-time favorite stories.
Yeah.
How about the guy who pitched a complete game on LSD?
Oh, that another great one.
Doc Ellis.
One of my other ones is a guy for the Yankees, I believe. Pitched got retired 27 straight hitters and did not record a perfect game because Babe Ruth actually started the game and got ejected after throwing at the first hitter of the game. So the reliever came in and pitched 27 consecutive outs, and he got credit for a no-hitter, but not a perfect game.
Yeah, I love the Harvey Haddock story. He pitched 12 perfect innings and lost the game in the 13th inning.
Brutal. But that's what I'm saying. Like, these baseball reference games are incredible. So I'm glad you guys nerd out with this as much as I do.
It's fun. Much better than Wordle.
Yeah, I'm over Wordle.
I don't do any of them except for now I do the baseball one. That one's fun. Immaculate Grid is a good time. I'll be honest, but
what we'll have to do one day is we'll do like the baseball reference game, like John Boy does. We'll do the baseball reference game, and we'll try to see if we can stump each other.
We used to do that all the time when I worked for CBS Sports. They love those games.
Love it.
It's difficult, but you're going to be way better than maybe Jack.
Funny,
I'm not going to speak for Jack and I both, but you're going to be way better than me.
I actually do better at the baseball reference, like looking at the stats and naming the player, as opposed to the Immaculate Grid, where it's like pick a player in this criteria.
Let me see if I can pull up one right now. We can end the show with it.
Okay. It's going to be a little bit more difficult since I can't see your screen.
Shohei Ohtani.
Connor McDavid.
Mike, just tell me I was about to make that compare. I was about to throw in a McDavid plug earlier.
Of course you were.
No, just because I was going to compare him and Mike Trout in terms of like just trapped on a team that never feels like they're going to win.
It's fair. I mean, it is a good comparison.
Two incredible players that just feel like they're doomed to be in markets that no one gives a shit about.
Yep.
Yeah. It's tough.
How do you
All right,
get
Mike,
to
what do you got?
They replaced where it used to be with the Immaculate Grid.
Oh, Immaculate Grid.
Here it is. Just the random.
Yeah. Can you just tell us the name though, so we can have the stats in front of us before we guess?
I'll take it off there. Thanks for taking
the stats for you. Yeah, we'll figure it out later. Anyway, we'll find that game and make it maybe we'll do it every once in a while.
All right, I'm gonna give you one really quickly before we get out of here, and
All right.
It is a name that was mentioned on today's show already today. I'm just gonna give you the years and the teams. This person played from 99 to 2005 with the Marlins. Spent 06 to 08 with the Blue Jays, 09 to 11 with the Yankees, 12 and 13 with the Pirates, 14 with the Phillies, 15 back to the Pirates.
Somebody that was already named.
I don't remember if they were named on the podcast or we were talking about them prior to the show, but we talked about them in some capacity today.
I know who you're talking about. Well, I'll let Jack.
I'm probably not going to get this. It's not hockey.
I was thinking Phillies, and it was a 1 year, and then he went to the Pirates. You said.
Yep.
AJ Burnett.
That is correct. There you go. And that is how we'll end today's show. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. Next week, we will be back. It will be 3 once again, but this time I'm going to be off. I'm going to take a little vacation. Jack, you're taking a little vacation, but you're a better man than I because you're going to hop on the pod. So next week it'll be Jack and Mike and Mark, and I will be back in 2 weeks to give you all of my thoughts on the MLB trade deadline as we get a little bit closer to the NFL. So guys, this was a lot of fun. If you don't mind, before we get out of here, one final time, just hit that subscribe button and hit the like button on this video. We would greatly appreciate it. And gentlemen, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Brian Cashman, resign, please, sir. Resign.
Respectfully.
Your final thoughts. I was thinking of the movie Pop Star with The Lonely Island, and I just wanted to recite the lyrics from the Incredible Thoughts song with Michael Bolton.
All right, everybody. We will check out with you next time. They'll see you next week. I'll see you in 2 right here on Crossing the Line podcast.